You don't know his parents' name. You don't know that fact either. What? He was very bright. But they were very poor, so he had worked. Even from the age of 6 to the age of 15, he and his family had to work to live. At the age of 15, the Presbyterian minister, which is a Scottish, it's Canadian, a lot of Scottish Canadians ran the Presbyterian ministry in Trinidad, just starting it. They thought he was so bright, they put him into school, the first missionary school by the Presbyterians in Trinidad. He was so bright, 4 years later, at the age of 19, they thought, hey, this guy is sharp. So they sent him on a scholarship to Canada to become minister, Presbyterian minister. Here's this little Chinese guy going, and the Presbyterian church at the time, almost every one of the people who they served, as it were East Indian laborers from the East Indian indenture. So here's this Chinese, he came back as a reverend. I tell you his name, you don't know his name up to this point. We thought his name was Long Fook, or Fook Loom, we are sure. However, by the time he was back, he was known as Reverend Jacob Corsby. I bid you welcome my grandfather. You're supposed to applaud for that. Reverend Jacob Corsby. So you say to yourself, how did this Chinese guy get this name? We know the facts. We know some of the truths. There was a white Canadian missionary Scotsman, whose name was Jacob Corsby, Reverend. We think he was baptized. A lot of these indentured people who came over were baptized into a Christian name when they became whatever, Presbyterian. So he took the name of Jacob Corsby, the Scottish Canadian minister. All right. So that sounds okay. He married, my grandfather marries a woman from Barbados, the island of Barbados, who is partly African, partly South American, Amerindian, and partly Welsh. So, the problem is this, the situation is this. When the indentured Chinese came to Trinidad and the Caribbean, they were not ghettoized. There were so few of them that there weren't large quantities of them in one area. So they integrated into the society very quickly and very easily for their own survival. So here it is. He marries Barbadian, African, Amerindian, Welsh. He's Chinese. So what does he do? They get 8 children. 8 children. That's what they did. And one of the children is this guy. That's my dad. Looks like a relation, doesn't he? Jacquard, right? Yeah? Jacquard. This was called gunboat pants. And this short jacket came up in here. Later on, 40 years later, we as kids knew this style, which came back as a batty breezer. In the Caribbean, this is known as your batty, so they were known as batty breezers, as you can see. Women wear that all the time, all right? My dad goes and marries a half Scottish woman from the island of Tobago. So things are beginning to, man, what's going on here? 4 children, one of them, yours truly. So I said to myself, do I have a nation's story? And I find out that my sister, first marriage, was an East Indian. My brother's first marriage was a Chinese. My brother's second marriage was an East Indian. My son's first marriage was half Indian and half Portuguese. And so it goes. So do I have a nation's story? You see, the thing is this. You see, and I'll be looking at it. My dad was therefore half Chinese, half African, half South American Indian, half Welsh, half African. My mother was half Scottish from the island of Tobago, but she didn't feel Scottish. She felt a true Tobagonian. My dad felt like a full-blooded Trinidadian. So you see, that genealogy of mine, I beat Tiger Woods to it a long time. You wonder. Well, when Tiger Woods first came on the scene and began to beat everybody, everybody said, hey, it's great African American. He said, hold on. You see my mother there? From Thailand. You see my father there? He has Native American. So I'm Afro-Asian Native American. You see, well, 5-10 years ago when I was becoming an American citizen, I had to fill up an American form. It had 5 squares, which you had to tick off one of them. Asian, tick. Native American, tick. Hispanic, tick. White, tick. Black, top. And at the most one another top. And to top up the pot, my grandchildren, like the famous chef, Emerald famous chef, they kick it up a notch. Portuguese. Bam, East Indian. Bam, Norwegian. Bam, Brazilian. La 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 la. So you see, the thing gets more and more confused. So do I have an Asian story? I do I? That's my Asian story. But however, I think I have to make little notes. Oh yes, I want to prove that I'm very Asian. When I'm feeling a little depressed, when my wife and I say I get out of the house, we go to a Chinese restaurant in Long Island. I'm like, and my favorite thing that lifts me is Sopgum Lo Mein. Lo Mein Sopgum. That is the house. They throw every type of meat in. It's a pork, a piece of beef, a piece of chicken, and a piece of shrimp. And a lo mein. I said, why do I like it so much? I have an Asian story. In Guyana, where I came up living, my whole life was in Guyana before I came here, my favorite meal was chow mein with a small bowl of curry chicken and roti and gravy chicken. So there's Indian and Chinese. We discovered the Jamaican, my wife and I discovered the Jamaican. There's one table restaurant somewhere by Home Depot. Curry roti, goat roti. Curry roti is my favorite. So I begin to feel Asian. And how do I have some Scottish background too? Butterscotch ice cream is my favorite. And I used to play a great hopscotch. You know hopscotch? Scotch whiskey was my thing. So you see, do I have an Asian story? Yes or no? Yes. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is my Asian story. Yeah. Applause for that. And notice I have 2 minutes. I'm going to break some records. I'm going to tell a Chinese and an Indian story in 1 minute each flat. Time. I have several choices of Chinese stories. Here we are. Chen. Chen was Chen was the most frugal man in the whole village. He was famous in the whole district of being the most frugal man. 1 leaf of everything. He never wore shoes. He was living very frugally and he was very honored as the most frugal man in the area. But he heard of the world's most frugal man living 80 miles away in another district in China. This is in China, like my ancestors. And Chen said, he sent his son to the most frugal man in the world to find out if he would give him lessons on how to be the most frugal person in the world. So he gave his son the cheapest piece of paper you can find, the cheapest piece of charcoal, and he drew a boar's head, which is a gourmet meal in those days. He says, take this gift of a boar's head. So the son walked and walked and walked for 2 days and 2 nights. At last he reached the village where the most frugal man in the world lived. And he gave him, but he wasn't there, only his son was there. So son to son, here is a gift. We'd like your father to teach my father how to be more frugal. Yes, second. Son, yes. And here is a gift for you. Here are 3 oranges. And he minded empty hands, he said, there they are. And he said, this is the most frugal. I've never seen frugality like this. So he went and he gave his father. 2 days later, the most frugal man